must be lovers, we'll marry our fortunes together. I've got some real estate here in my bag, so we bought a pack of cigarettes and Mrs. Wagner pies and one.
Good morning, everybody. Please give a warm welcome to Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much for being here on this beautiful Iowa morning. And we are going to talk about an enormously important issue that doesn't get enough discussion. And one of the things I love doing as a senator and as a campaign for president is kind of breaking through the silence and talking about issues that are on the minds of millions of people, but somehow we don't talk about in Congress or we don't talk about in the media. All of you are aware that I'm doing everything that I can, having introduced in the Senate the Medicare for All legislation that finally will do what every other major country on earth does, and that is guarantee health care to all people as a human right. And I want you to know what that means. It means that we do and expand upon what they do in Canada, and that is you go to any doctor you want, you go to any hospital you want, but you don't have to take out your wallet, you don't have to take out your credit card. And if you have a serious illness, there are zero expenses. That's it. And to my mind, that is what healthcare in a democratic, civilized society is supposed to be about. Everybody gets the health care they need, and it's paid for out of the general tax base, and nobody has any medical debt. That's what we are striving for. So we are making good progress on that. I think all over the country, more and more people are coming on board that effort. We're taking on the healthcare industry, by the way, which made $100 billion in profits last year. We're taking on the pharmaceutical industry, which, as you know, charges us by far the highest prices in the world. And these guys who are making huge profits, they love the current system. They think it's great. Most Americans don't. But we're going to have to take them on. They're already advertising here in Iowa, et cetera, et cetera. But we're going to do something else. As president, what we are going to do is cancel the $81 billion in past due medical debt in this country. And we're going to roll back the disastrous bankruptcy reform bill that made it harder for millions of Americans to discharge medical debt after a debilitating illness. All right, and I think what we're going to discuss today is really something quite amazing and quite horrific. Somebody gets diagnosed with a terrible illness. All right, you got enough to worry about with an illness, right? How do you get your feet back on the ground? You should not have to be dealing with people hounding you to pay off a debt that you cannot pay. That is just absurd. I am sick and tired of seeing working class families and small businesses pay far more for health care than they can afford, and 530,000 Americans declare bankruptcy each year because they cannot pay off the outrageous cost of a medical emergency or hospital stay. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? People go bankrupt. For what reason? What did they do? Did they, take a risk on Wall Street? Did they buy, some real estate that worked out badly? They got sick. They got cancer. They got some terrible disease. In America, should we go bankrupt because we came down with a terrible illness? I think not. Families in Iowa, families in Vermont, all over this country should not be driven into financial ruin because someone in the family became seriously ill, while the healthcare industry, as I just said, made $100 billion in profits last year. In Nevada, just a few weeks ago, I was in Carson City, and I talked to a veteran there who was contemplating suicide because of a $139,000 medical bill, which he has no ability to pay off, and he's being hounded by bill collectors. Can't pay it off. But he is not alone. Last week, this is really quite amazing, my campaign asked the following question on social media. We sent out stuff on social media. We said, what's the most absurd medical bill you have ever received? That was the question. And in 1 week, we received over 50,000 heartbreaking responses from desperate people all over this country who could not afford to pay their medical bills. 50,000 in 1 week just on my social media. And here are the facts. In America today, medical debt is the leading cause of consumer bankruptcy. Listen to this. 42% of Americans lose their entire life savings 2 years after being diagnosed with cancer. Can you believe that? And you know what really gets me is that if you are diagnosed with a terrible illness like cancer, your head is reeling, right? And you're thinking about, how do I get well? What doctor do I go to? And then you're going to have to deal with financial ruin for your family. Why? Because you came down with a terrible illness. That is just unacceptable. 79 million Americans are financially burdened by medical debt simply because they got sick. Right now, 1 out of every 6 Americans have past due medical bills on their credit report. Let's talk about that, including over 400,000 people here in Iowa. The largest share of that medical debt is held by 27-year-olds who lose access to their parents' insurance after age 26. 1 out of every 4 people in America said that sometime in the past year they had skipped medical treatment because of concerns about the cost of that treatment. Again, what I ask of you is to understand you're living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. People do not go to the doctor because they are worried about the cost of it and the debt that they may have to incur. Nearly half of all Americans fear a major medical event could cause them to go bankrupt. Over 46 million Americans have at least one unpaid medical bill that has been sent to a collection agency on their credit report. Now, what happens? Let's talk about this morning. What happens to somebody who has poor credit scores as a result of medical debt? Okay? You go to the hospital, you run up a debt, you can't pay it, your credit card, your credit rating, and your credit score is shot. Well, when your credit ratings are shot, you're going to pay higher interest rates. It forces many of people in this country, because their credit is now so bad, to go to payday lenders who are a bunch of thieves out there charging people unbelievably high rates. It makes it harder, therefore, at these rates for people to purchase a car they need to get to work, and it will continue to force families to forego the medical care they need. Further, we now have an absurd situation where rural hospitals that are desperate for money, listen to this, you have rural hospitals that are desperate for money, they're struggling, are suing low-income and working-class patients who don't have the money to pay them. Again, think about this. You got a hospital. Everybody wants to maintain rural hospitals. People need a hospital in their community. Hospitals are under desperate financial conditions. People who go to the hospital are under desperate financial conditions. And the hospital is now suing patients who don't have any money to pay them. How insane is this in the wealthiest country in the history of the world? The result of all of this is that people in our country are losing their homes, they're losing their cars, and they're losing their job opportunities because of unpaid medical bills. This is unacceptable. This is unconscionable. It is not what this country is supposed to be about. And when I am in the White House, we are going to change all of that. And again, what I want to say to you, please, this is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. If we were a poor country, I would be telling you something else. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Nobody should be going bankrupt because they got sick. That is crazy business. And yesterday I introduced a plan to address this very serious problem, and it is pretty straightforward. Let me briefly describe it to you. Under this plan, the federal government will negotiate and pay off the $81 billion in past due medical bills in collections that are to credit agencies. The truth is, the actual cost of the federal government will be significantly less because there are the people who will hound you day and night, pay pennies on the dollar for this debt. We're going to put an end to the abusive and harassing practices of unscrupulous and greedy debt collectors who are driving the American people crazy. We're going to prohibit the collection of debt beyond the statute of limitations. We're going to make sure that no one in America who gets sick or has a family member who gets sick will lose their home, will lose their job, or their primary vehicle because of an unpaid medical bill. In other words, we're going to protect people through bankruptcy reform from losing the essentials in life that they need. We're going to repeal the worst elements of the disastrous bankruptcy bill and make it much easier for the American people to get the financial relief they need when they get sick. We're going to remove and exclude medical debt from existing credit reports to immediately improve the credit scores of 46 million Americans. And we will end the use of credit checks for rental housing, employment, insurance, and other non-lending practices, among other things. Okay? So bottom line is we're trying to address the crisis that we face in healthcare today in two ways. Prospectively, we want everybody to have health care as a human right with no out-of-pocket expenses. Right now, though, you've got so many people who are struggling with this debt whose credit is being destroyed. We want to address that as well. So that's what we are doing. Let me now begin the discussion, and let me ask some of you if you would be kind enough to share your stories with medical debt. Ma'am?
Hello. Hi, sorry. My name is Amy Fisher, and I have a chronic illness, and I've been sick since I was 16 years old. And I've been a patient for 21 years. And I've had insurance the whole time because my mother burrowed into my head, never, ever have a lapse in insurance, otherwise nobody will insure you, because she was right, because I do have a chronic illness. So I was able to keep insurance, and it's not about being uninsured, which that is a huge problem, obviously, but it's about being underinsured. And I've been underinsured for over a decade, and because of that, my husband and I have been riddled with debt. My parents have been riddled with debt. We lived in Chicago after we graduated and made a life there. I worked as a medical assistant, met my very best friend in the world there. And in 2011, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't work. And we were just hit with, I was sick, we were hit with medical bills. And so we had to move back to Iowa into my parents' basement for a year until I got approved for Social Security. And when I got approved for Social Security, we moved into a rental house. We thought we were okay. I was on my husband's insurance still, underinsured. And he works for a Fortune 100 company, super uninsured. So we lost our rental house, had to move in with our friend's basement. So we've been basement hopping because I've been sick. And I'm sorry, honey. Thank you for sticking with me. And thank you to my parents for letting us live in their basement because we could have been homeless. So we move into another rental house. I get Medicare. I start using it. I start finding out what it's really like to have health care. Sorry. It's taken everything from me. I'm going to try not to cry. But you're among friends. Okay. It's just it's a relief to know that I can go to the ER when my symptoms flare up. When I'm nauseous and in pain and crying on the bathroom floor, and I can think, I can either go to the ER and get symptom relief, or I might lose our house. So I'm going to probably stick to the floor. So it's just, when I got Medicare and started not having bills and started having that freedom, I started really working on myself. I am vegan now. I do yoga. I kind of do yoga. I'm not very good at it. I fall a lot. But I got a couple surgeries that I needed to feel better, and I was putting those off because those were gonna take another house away from us. Medicare has saved a house for us over our heads. The one problem that we have left is now that my husband has a chronic illness and he is underinsured. So we're always going to be digging out of that hole unless Medicare for All passes.
Amy, thank you. Stay there for a second. I know it's not easy, for people to talk about personal issues, healthcare issues. Not easy. But what I want to say to Amy is the story that you are telling in one form or another is being experienced by millions and millions of people. Can you imagine not going to get the care that you need when you're in excruciating pain, right? Worried about the bill, or being driven out of your home because of medical debt. Look, this does not go on listen, what I'm talking about, what we are talking about today is not a radical idea. It does not go on in other major countries around the world, and we're the wealthiest country. So, Amy, thanks so much for sharing your story with us. Okay. Anybody else want to jump up? I think Brian?
Thank you, Senator, for being here. I really appreciate it. My name is Brian McLean. I am a father, I'm a husband, and I am 12 years a proud union member. Now, I've heard people like me getting discussed a lot in debates, and they're not wrong. I am grateful for the health care that my union has negotiated for me every single day. It's one of the very few times I've had health care in my life, in my adult life. But that still doesn't completely protect me from incurring debt or from surprise bills or anything like that. My son, about 8 years ago, had to have tubes put in his ears, standard procedure. And when we got the bill, we were already expecting to take a hit because of our deductible. We were expecting to pay hundreds of dollars. And while everything in our bill, everything in the procedure was covered in network, the surgical center was not. It was not in the network. It was 2 weeks away from it being in network. And that caused our bill to skyrocket to a couple $1,000s. Definitely not a worst case scenario. I recognize that. It could have been a heck of a lot worse. But it still took my family 2 years to recover from that hit. I understand that a lot of people are appreciative of the health care that they have through their union, and I'm grateful for what my union has done for me. But I stand here in solidarity with not only my labor brothers and sisters, but anybody touched by this, by medical debt, and by surprise bills, and all of a sudden finding out that you're underinsured or not covered at all. I had a friend confide in me earlier this morning that she lost her insurance for her son, and it was just out of the blue. So now she's in danger of incurring debt. I'm here to stand in solidarity with them, and we need Medicare for all now. We need to cancel the millions of dollars that has been incurred in debt all across this country by hundreds of thousands of families. And Senator, You are the only one that I can trust to get this done. You are going around empowering people like me and all over the country to get this done. You understand that it takes all of us, and that is why I am proud to stand with you and continue to stand with you. Thank you, Senator, for everything that you're doing.
Is April here? Where's that? Nothing to be nervous about.
Hi.
Only 18 television cameras.
My name is April Burch. I'm from Boone, Iowa. And when I was 37, I had been working as a contractor for a major corporation for a couple of years, and they wanted to hire me on as a full-time employee. There was a catch. I had to wait 30 days in between ending my contract and beginning as a full-time employee. And left me in a spot where, for the first time in my adult life, I was going to be going more than a few weeks without medical insurance. So I looked into COBRA, and it was $1,200 a month for COBRA coverage, and I couldn't do it. I had just taken the young teenage daughter of a friend who had died of cancer in under my wing, and there was just no way we could make that happen. I was going to be unemployed for a month, and my fiance and I found out the week before I started my new job that I was expecting. And I was hopeful. I crossed my fingers, and I made my first prenatal appointment for after my employer-sponsored health care was supposed to kick in. 3 weeks later, I was rushed to the ER for emergency surgery. I had an ectopic pregnancy. As I recovered from that, the bills just kept coming in. Each one was just more salt in the wounds of losing this pregnancy, which was something I had hoped and prayed for years. And the hospital billing department offered me a payment plan. It was about $40,000 in total. The bill for the surgery, the facility, the physicians, the anesthetist, the nursing staff, and I didn't even stay the night. They had me out by 9 o'clock that night.
Say that again, please. I'm not sure I caught that.
I wasn't even kept overnight for observation.
The bill was how much?
About $40,000. The hospital offered me a payment plan. It was $100 a month, and it would have taken me 33 years to pay off. So on the first of the month for the rest of my life, until I was 71 years old, I was planning to sign up to get a bill to remind me of this horrible time in my life where I lost this pregnancy and also lost my fertility. I was never able to conceive after that. So it was going to be 33 years of this bill showing up every month, and I was despondent, I was depressed, I was wanting to die at some points, and I have this vague memory of the hospital billing staff saying, well, you should apply for state assistance because you might qualify, you never know. And I applied, and just by a miracle of chance, I was about $100 under the income cutoff, and my entire bill was paid like overnight by Iowa Medicaid. The relief I felt at that was indescribable. I was so grateful, and that's really the reason why I'm here today and why I would scrap my employer-sponsored health care without a second thought. Because I know about the pitfalls, I know about the gaps that exist in coverage, and it's a nightmare for people. And that's why I support the work that you're doing, Senator Sanders. Out of all the presidential candidates, you're the one that I trust to make this happen. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is Dr. Jana Libby here? Okay, doctor. Good morning.
Am I working? There.
Yes, you're working.
Thank you. I'm a little rattled. I've told this story to friends. I've told it to family. This is the first time I've told it to my presidential candidate. My name is Dr. Jana Libby. I was part of the healthcare delivery system. I'm now teaching the next generation of future doctors and nurses. I'm a college professor. I'm also a widower. I'm a widower because the Affordable Care Act let my wife down. Not only let her down, Senator, if you can imagine a spouse concealing her colon cancer from her husband because she was afraid of the bill. I knew she was sick. I knew that she had had a bowel obstruction. It should have been easily taken care of, practically routine. But I was trying to navigate the care system with my colleagues, trying to understand billing. I was trying to understand gold, bronze, blue, yellow, whatever. I was trying to look at an employer health plan that was available to her that after her diagnosis, the employer canceled. And so on her first admission, she looked at me and she said, "Yanni, how much is this going to cost?" And I said, "I don't have any idea. I don't know. Don't worry about it. We'll get you better." And so I'd been working on that until March. My mother died that March of blessed memory. I didn't even get to bury her because I was up to my elbows trying to decipher plans. I was reading her care plan. I was trying to figure things out. 3 weeks later, she took me to the emergency room, and I was in ICU because my heart finally said, "This is enough. You can't do it." And that was a point there where she decided she was not going to say any more about her own illnesses. I found out she was terminal 5 days before she died. After she died, I was going through her things. And around a picture of her beloved greyhounds, there was a cash register receipt for pain medication from July. Of it, she said, "I can't say anything about this. This is going to probably kill me, but you'll lose everything and that will kill you." I'm a doctor. I've got a prescription. It's Medicare for all. It's Medicare for all. And we're leaving here today with another prescription in our pocket. That prescription is you, Senator. 18 months from now, it's Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Libby. You know, this is tough stuff. This is tough stuff. And the 4 stories we have heard and more we'll hear, it's going on all over the country. This is insane. It is unnecessary. We don't need a healthcare system simply designed to make hundreds of billions of dollars in profit for the insurance industry, who, by the way, pay their CEOs millions and millions of dollars a year. These guys spend huge amounts of money lobbying Congress, giving away campaign contributions. That's why we are where we are right now. So, all right, other thoughts on the issue? Somebody else want to bring forth? Yes. Let's get a mic.
George Ernst, and I had a car crash in January, if you can't tell by the
I see it.
nice scar on my forehead. And if we were an immigrant who had no insurance and we got in a car crash, we wouldn't be able to pay for it at all. I can only imagine. I don't know what the total would have been, but it was high. I was in the in Mercy, actually, or Methodist, not Mercy, my bad, and for 3 weeks about, and it was bad. And then after that, I had to go to a really good place, On With Life, for rehabilitation for about 2 months and in a week or two. And that would have just crippled someone if they didn't have insurance. And the thing I like about Medicare for All is the fact it's not Medicare for America. It's not Medicare for the few. It's Medicare for all.
Right. Great. Okay. Anybody else want to share their experiences or their views? I see a hand back there, ma'am.
Hi, sorry, I'm very nervous. I apologize.
Don't be nervous. You really are.
My name is Amanda Sager.
Hold the mic close to your
Oh,
mouth.
sorry. My name's Amanda Sager. I'm from South Dakota. In 2013, I was diagnosed with a mental illness. Anybody with a mental illness knows finding the right medication regimen is an absolutely hellacious nightmare. The thing that makes it even worse is when the prescriptions for mental illness medication are very experimental, very new, and mostly name brand. When my husband and I were doing it was hard for me to hold down a job because when you have a mental illness diagnosis, a lot of times you're very erratic. Your mind is everywhere. You're not yourself. And you're trying to make sense of everything. Everything is chaotic. Everything is everywhere. You're trying to find your new normal. And you're trying to just basically be better. Getting on Social Security, disability, everything is a nightmare as well because the waiting period is so long. So you have no choice but to work. You have no choice but to just push on. And we're living paycheck to paycheck. Even with his insurance, which is fairly good, there would be prescriptions where we'd have to pay $75. I'd take 4 pills, would not work.
$75 for how long a period?
Oh, just a prescription.
For a prescription.
Yeah, and I'd take 4 pills, wouldn't work, have to throw it away. And that happened several times. You know, and just the copay, that was with insurance. And that would happen with multiple medications. Then you have to pay your copay for therapy every week, your psychiatry for every week. And it has bankrupted us, even though we haven't done the official file for bankruptcy. Last year alone, even though thankfully I found a medication regimen that works for me, I do see weekly therapy. I do, see a psychiatrist, and thankfully it is hopefully under control, knock on wood. But mental health is astronomically expensive right now. And the reason why I appreciate your Medicare for All bill is because it does include mental health.
Of course it does.
Thank you so much.
Of course it does. Thank you very much. And I go around the country and people says, does your bill cover this? Does your bill? It covers all basic health care needs. Last I heard, mental illness was a basic health care need. In fact, it's a crisis in this country. So of course we cover it. And let me tell you what else we cover, by the way. We cover dental care. How's that? We cover hearing aids. We cover eyeglasses. We cover home health care, because all of these are basic human health care needs. And we don't have networks, where your doctor is here or your hospital is there. You go to any doctor you want. You go to any hospital you want. This is not a radical idea. It exists in other countries. And we've got to create a healthcare system that works for you and for all of us, and not just for the insurance companies and the drug companies. Okay, anyone else want to, ma'am? Let me get, Misty, got a mic here? Just give us your name.
My name's Julie Shortley. I live in, My name's Julie Shortley. I live in Des Moines, Iowa. I have 3 children. Our first health care battle was our son was born preemie, so that left us in about $50,000 worth of debt. And then soon after I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, And so our bills at that time for me were maybe $1,000 a month for the Humira that I was on. Then when my son was 3, my husband lost his job, and at the same time, my son got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So we were in the hospital with a child who was critically ill in intensive care, and the collection agencies came into us. They had to call security on me because I lost my mind. Like, I was so desperate.
You were in the intensive care unit with your son.
And the collection agencies found out we did not have insurance because my husband had lost his job days before. They came into the room and were like very nasty, wanting to know how we were going to pay, wanting credit cards. And my son was dying. I don't know if you know about type 1 diabetes, but it kills, and it kills fast. My son was, undiagnosed. He was only 3 years old. And so they had to call security. I'm kind of a fighter. And I was like, my son's going to live. Like, something's going to have, So anyway, we left with debt from that. I don't even remember how much. But then I had another daughter get diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. She was trying to not take her meds recently at college. She couldn't even use a fork because she was spending money on college and was not wanting us to pay for her $1,000 a month in Humira. And so for us, like, we've never been out of debt. Our credit is shot. It's gone. We can't get a new house. I pay 27% interest on my car because our
27% interest rate.
We have a $900 car payment. So that because I can't get anything else because our credit score is so bad, we can't get out. I mean, I've thought about, a lot of times I don't take my medicine. I have 2 nephews with type 1 diabetes. They've both been in intensive care, one 3 times, one 4 times, because they're young adults and they don't have enough insulin. So they have to ration it. There's no way out for us. I mean, other than you, Bernie. I mean, like, really, like, you're the hope that we have, and not to put no pressure. No pressure. You're our hope. You're our hope. It's been very dark. And my kids are great. My daughter campaigns for you. My kids understand it. They're the next generation like you guys. Thank you, because you've been a big part of getting this out there and working so hard.
This story should not be told in our country.
No.
You and your family should not have to go through this. So thank you very much for sharing this. Okay, anybody else want to share a story? I can see a gentleman right here.
Good morning, Senator. My name is Ivan Guerra.
Coming around here so I can see it a little bit better there. Good. That's okay. You're looking great.
Good morning, Senator. My name is Ivan Guerra. I'm a 3rd grade teacher and a proud father of 5 kids. My story, I really felt what you said, sir. And when she's talked about her diabetic son, I really, really felt that. I'm a father to a type 1 diabetic son. And our insurance, the union negotiates insurance, but it doesn't negotiate for everyone, and it negotiates for most. So when we talk about injectables and other things that type 1 diabetic kids need, it doesn't cover even half of it. So we're struck with a bill every single month to figure out how we are going to cover that because, you have to pay the bill. And so we've had to cut and figure out who is not going to take their medication this month because our diabetic son has to have his. Personally, I'm a 3rd grade teacher and I'm diagnosed with a mental illness. And I take prescription medication that really helps me balance my depression. And, sometimes my medication doesn't get filled. So luckily I'm able to just survive. In this country, we shouldn't have to choose who gets fed or who gets their medicine and who doesn't. I think we all should, and your plan, Senator, is the best plan that anyone's come up with. You're the only one that we could trust. And my vote's with you for always, always.
It just, thank you. I mean, what we're hearing.
I have the same insurance.
You're the same, teachers.
We got that much debt when I was
people are not taking the medicine they need. When you don't take the medicine you need, you run into danger zones. In terms of diabetes, you put your life on the line when you don't take the insulin that you need. It's insane. It really is insane. And it's a horrible. All right, other comments. I see all right, gentleman right here, yeah. Are you guys together or? No? Okay, just sitting here. Okay, yeah. Let me get over here and turn around.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Will Vanguard. I'm a 3-time Iraq War veteran, and I don't have any medical debt because every time I have something I need to get taken care of, I just go to the VA.
Good.
I just walk right in. There's no bill,
Right.
and you shouldn't have to go fight in some illegal war for that to happen in America. So I want to thank Bernie for voting against that war, and we need a commander-in-chief that's going to know where to spend our money. That's all I had, Bernie.
All right, thank you very much. All right, let me, just say thank you for your service. And I'm sorry that you had to go to that war. It's a war I vigorously opposed. But what we should be doing and making sure is that every veteran in this country gets the quality care that they need, and that's something we're going to strive for. Okay, ma'am, did you want to add a few words? Okay. Yeah, turn around so they can see that as well.
Again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for being here.
I'm a home care nurse, and I have a lot of clients on Medicaid HMOs right now, and I know it's a big deal here in Iowa. I've had clients lose their Medicaid HMO for a month or more, having no home health aid services, no nurse services that they cannot live without just because they don't have the insurance to pay for it, and they don't have the money to pay for it out of pocket. Medicare for All would solve that problem, and I think you're the only one that can get us there. I've also had clients who are on Medicare that don't have that issue at all. I've had clients who need a home health aid, but their particular plan on the Medicaid HMO doesn't pay for the home health aid. So they're a seizure risk, get in the shower by themselves, fall and hit their head, and then they go into the ER because their plan doesn't pay for it. Yeah, I think that's really my biggest concern right now.
What is so insane, thank you very much. Thank you for the work you're doing. What is so irrational and dysfunctional, and you touched on this, is if you don't give people the care they need when they need it, their situation will often get worse at great expense to the system. So if you don't have a doctor of your own and you go into the emergency room, it costs 10 times more than just going to a community health center, for example, where you have the doctor that you need. If you don't protect elderly people from falling, and they fall and they end up in the hospital, you're spending $1 zillion in a way you did not have to, not to mention all of the pain that the individual has to experience. If you don't take your medicine, all right, whatever the illness may be, what do you think happens? It ain't get better, you get worse. And then you may end up in the hospital at huge expense to the system. So a rational and humane system says when you get sick, you get the care that you need when you need it. It's good for you, and it saves us money overall. That's what a rational system is about. Okay, anybody else have a thought or two on this? I see a hand over here. Misty? Okay.
Hi, my name is Jessica, and my mother was mentally and physically disabled. She repeatedly applied for disability benefits for years and got denial after denial. And her approval letter came in 1 week after she died.
You know, the reason that people do not get the disability benefits that they need on time The reason that there is a huge backlog in Social Security Administration is simply because we have a government that is more concerned about giving tax breaks to billionaires than making sure that Americans get the benefits that they desperately need. And that's what it's about. We've worked very hard on that issue. I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your mother. All right, we got to get going here. I really, this has been a difficult meeting for all of us, I think, because we're hearing our friends and our neighbors, people in this community, experiencing a lot of unnecessary pain. Sometimes pain happens in life, and it happens. But what we are hearing today is unnecessary pain based upon a dysfunctional and irrational healthcare system designed to make drug companies and insurance companies huge profits. And the American people increasingly understand that, and we're gaining momentum. So one way that we go forward is precisely what we're doing here today. And I want to thank all of the people. This is not easy stuff getting up here. You're a little bit nervous, Brian, right? A little bit. All right, it's not easy. But understand that when you talk about it, and when Brian talks about it, and when April talks about it, when people talk about it, then other people say, you know what? All right, you and him end up having